A step back in time. A self-guided tour of Camp White Sulphur Springs, Confederate Cemetery. The purpose of this project is to enhance visitor experience and increase visits through the addition of a self-guided tour. Three groups have been involved with Camp White Sulphur Springs Confederate Cemetery in the past 20 years. There is the involvement of National Park Service through its National Historic Landmarks Program, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and the Daughters of Confederate Veterans. All three have a separate mission, but the one thing in common is that they seek to preserve the historical context of a person, location, and/or item. Currently, when you visit Camp White Sulphur Springs Confederate Cemetery, you'll find that most written information is severely sun-faded. Visitors will often leave with more questions than answers, and there's no context to draw visitors for a return visit. Entering the property, visitors are greeted by a welcome center. Weatherproofing this and the materials kept here is key to enhancing visits. On this side, toward the back, you will find the only remaining concrete pillar for William Poole's boarding house. Well, given just a modest summary, a virtual tour could enhance the information visitors are given. For example, this boarding house burnt down twice. Also, according to the 1860 slave schedule and U.S. Census, there were 2 slave houses on the property for 6 slaves. There were also 6 boarders at the time, with them all being male students attending one of the local schools. During the Civil War, the home served as a Confederate hospital before Union soldiers took over. And who knew Sulphur Springs could be just as rehabilitating as the hot springs located just a few counties away. You will also pass the stone for Eliza Davis Curry. In the summer of 1862, about 300 were in the hospital ill. When smallpox broke out in the Confederate camp, Eliza Curry became a volunteer nurse. In her efforts, Curry moved a few soldiers near to her home, where she and those soldiers she sought to save all succumbed to the smallpox outbreak. Yet, the small amount of information on our stone hardly tells her story. This additional information could easily be provided in a self-guided tour. On the right side, as one proceeds, you come to the graves at those that were lucky enough to be marked. Among those graves is that of Private George R. Woosley. He wrote home just weeks before Camp White would become his final resting place. Without further research, you would never know this, but it is information that could be provided in a self-guided tour.
August 11th, 1862. Dear wife, I embrace the present opportunity of writing you a few lines to inform you that I am in tolerable health, and I thank God that it is as well with me as it is. When these lines come to hand, I hope they may find you and the children well. I received yours this Monday morning, the 11th of August. I was truly glad to hear that you was all well. I have nothing of interest to write to you. We have left Camden and are now camped 9 miles from Pine Bluff, and I expect will remain here for some time. I could hardly make the trip, the weather was so warm. I ain't slept with any cover on me since I left home, and in the open air at that, without a tent. There is about 4,000 troops here. Our fare is beef and bread, some molasses, and a little bacon. I think hard times has just commenced. I have no war news to write. We can hear anything here. I care little about the war if I could be home. There's 300 in the hospital. There ain't but 40 men in our company able for duty out of 115. Neville Sutton was left on the road with the measles, and Garland Bright with the fever at the same house. Elizabeth, I would freely give all that I possess to get out of the war and see you and the children once more. Camp life don't suit me. We are not allowed to go a mile from camp without an order from General. Here I have temptations to encounter with. It takes a man with firmness to live in camp, a Christian life. Elizabeth, I study day and night about you and my two sweet children. Tell them to be good children till I come back. I want you to pray for me, and my troubles and trials are many. May God help you to pray for me and yourself and the children, and give you grace to bear up under all your troubles and sorrows. I am still in hopes that I will get off when the regiment is formed. If I never get back, I expect to meet you in Glory Land, where there will be no more parting husband and wife and friends. Direct your letters to Pine Bluff. From G. R. Woosley.
These examples are only a few areas that could be addressed during the self-guided tour. Other highlights of the property that could be discussed as part of this tour include slavery in the area and their daily life, Union soldiers and their part in their war in this area, the tomb of the unknown soldier found on the grounds and the significance of it, the fighting Parsons and what part they played here, and the burning of Sulphur Springs that came after the Confederates left, along with other life after the war. Creating a self-guided tour is not a far reach for this historic site. Steps are easily could be used to put this program into place. The Welcome Center would need an update. This is to help understand the flow of visitors before and after the new addition. It would need to become more weather resistant and be protected from the elements. Basic research. A lot of research has already been done by the previous groups attached to this property. Determination of what other stories would need to be accessible during the tour would have to be decided. Development of the tour with information placed online on an easy accessible platform. Installation of signage that is weather resistant with instructions for the self-guided tour. And then feedback and analysis would be used to determine if visitor count had increased for both new and returning guests. This is a project that could be easily completed by volunteers. Grants could help with funding, but donations could also be solicited from the community in the form of money and/or supplies needed. Research could be done by those who have previously researched the peoples and activities involved on these grounds, and asking volunteers to gather information would help as well. An online platform to secure all the information for the self-guided tour would be needed, but as a federal historical marker, online services may be available for free. The search for knowledge is a key need. Children begin asking why and how by the age of 3 and continue to ask this question throughout adulthood. A self-guided tour of Camp White Sulphur Springs Confederate Cemetery will answer questions like, why was there a boarding house here? Why are there so many buried here? How did they die? How did they get here and where did they go? Was there a battle? Who were other people, such as civilians, who are buried here? And who is the woman? And of course, the list of questions can go on. For the most part, there is an inherent need to have questions answered, and this self-guided tour will help do just that.